So recently, I've been playing a lot of League of Legends in my free time, since it has always been a game I've been interested in, but by the time I realized I could make a video on it, I had already played the game enough to understand the role I was playing. And if you're wondering what role I started with, I play jungle, which if you don't know is one of the most unique roles in the entire game, since instead of playing in a lane like all the other roles, you have to navigate the entire map. But with the recent airing of the League of Legends Worlds Tournament, I was inspired to try and learn how to play ADC or bottom lane, while also trying to hit a new peak rank of Iron 2. So, on October 24th, I opened League of Legends to play ADC for the first time. On day 1, after I finished doing a warm-up match to remember everything I needed to know for ADC, I queued up for my first ranked match of the season. After waiting in queue for a while, we finally found a match, and I decided that I was going to play Jinx since she is one of my favorite characters, and she also moves and shoots faster every time she gets a kill. So, it really makes you want to go crazy town on the enemy team. After the picking and banning phase, we loaded into the Summoner's Rift, and to be honest, my first game went pretty well. I made some good plays, and I also made some bad plays, and there were a lot of mistakes that were made along the way, but we were able to walk out with our first win of the day. For the second game, I decided to go Xayah since she was the one I learned the basics of ADC on, which was mainly learning to last hit minions since you don't do that in jungle, and how to play with your support to secure kills. The second match started out pretty rough for me since I had never played with Yuumi support before, so I ended up dying a lot, unsure of how to engage or play around the little cat on my shoulder. After dying a lot, I finally managed to make a semi-comeback and secured a couple of eliminations, and we even managed to get the Elder Dragon, and when there was a glimmer of hope that we could win the game, they basically stormed our base, killed everyone, and bombed our Nexus. For game 3, I went back to Jinx to see if maybe I could get another good game out of her, but unfortunately, the start was a little rough again, but I didn't die as much as I did in the previous game, so I was able to get a couple of kills to come back a little bit, but I mainly just got assists in most fights that match, while my teammates got the kills. And by the end of the game, I broke even, so I wasn't complaining, and we also won the game, so that was pretty great too. For my final game of the day, I wanted to try to get a win on Xayah, but unfortunately, even though the start wasn't bad and their jungle was making a lot of questionable plays,
my main goal is to blow up.
Our team kept going in one by one, and they would slowly pick us off, leaving only me and the jungle, which eventually lost us the game, so I decided to get off for the day and would try to go positive on day 2. On day 2, for my first match, I started off on Jinx since I was doing pretty good on her, but we had an Ivern in our jungle, which me personally, I think Ivern is a dog pick, at least in Iron, since it didn't seem like he provided much value whatsoever, and we ended up losing the game because the enemy was able to snowball objectives, making them way stronger than us. For the second match of the day, I played Jinx again, and did pretty well. I started off doing good, but struggled a bit to get into the action through the mid game. But I was able to get into a lot of team fights closer to the end while also helping my teammates break enemy turrets, and was able to secure a couple kills before we won the game. I also took notes on what I did differently between the previous game and the one I just played to try and limit my mistakes in the future matches. And the third match, I did pretty okay. Nothing too crazy, but I did have a top lane Gwen who absolutely carried the crap out of our team. And I honestly think we would have lost without him since the enemy had an Akali that was pretty strong already. But after a couple of hard fights, we finally managed to wrap up the game to get another victory under our belt. Up until that game, I wasn't really doing anything too notable. I hadn't had a crazy game or any crazy plays that I did, so I was mainly helping my team out while learning my role as an ADC. But for my final match, I got a taste of something I wish wasn't in the game. After loading into my final match, I didn't really notice anything out of the ordinary until when I looked over to top and I saw my Malphite, who was supposed to be our jungle, just standing in the middle of top lane with our top lane Xayah. Which, by the way, don't ask why Xayah was top lane, I couldn't tell ya. But throughout the entire match, the Malphite would stand top, get gold, take damage, and instead of recalling like a normal person, he would instead walk all the way back to spawn to buy a useless item that didn't matter, and then he would proceed to walk all the way back up top again to where he was before, and would continue to do this throughout the entire game. So you could probably imagine how frustrated I was when we lost because someone wanted to ruin people's games. So I decided to call it a day instead of playing another because I didn't really feel like playing Tilted. So I got off and decided to grind on day 3. On day 3, I wanted to give Xayah a try since I was practicing her abilities a bit off camera and wanted to show off a new ADC I learned. And for my first match, I did pretty decent. I was still pretty bad at Xayah, even with all the practice, but once I started using her passive, where she can root people when you recall your feathers more, I was able to help my team more and we eventually won the game. In the second game of the day, I decided to play Xayah again, and I was actually performing really well, but the enemy team decided to forfeit at the 15-minute mark because our entire team was hard rolling them. So I wasn't really able to pop off or help my team since I spent most of the game in bottom lane, but I was able to get at least a couple kills before the game ended. For the next game, I was having a really good day with Xayah, so I figured I would just play with her until I lost, and I had a really rough time since after my support died a single time, and I'm not even joking, he literally only died once in bottom lane. He decided that I was so bad at the video game, he didn't even want to come into my lane anymore. So I got stuck in a permanent 2v1, and since I also didn't really know how to play around that type of situation because it has never really happened to me up until that moment, I ended up hard feeding. Like, hard feeding. The entire game for me was mainly just a gray screen with the respawn timer, and it's a miracle that I even won the game. I was a little upset because I didn't do too good at all, and I knew I could have done better if I had some help, but I also realized that situations like that are going to happen and I just needed to learn how to work around it. But after a horrible match like that, I decided to get off for the night and would pick it back up on day 4. On day 4, for the first game of the day, I decided to play some Caitlyn since Jinx got banned, and for the first time throughout the entire week, I performed really well. I barely died, and I got a decent amount of kills and assists to back it up, so I marked that down as an improvement considering before, if I got high kills, it normally meant I got high deaths, or if I got low deaths, I had low kills. But this game taught me a lot about how I should try to position myself in better places in order to not get spotted so I can do more damage and kill more people. And then right after that match, I did horribly in the second game. Although I must admit their Pyke and Tristana were very coordinated, so whenever the Pyke hit a hook, the Tristana would immediately hop on me and obliterate me, which also led me to getting barely any kills by the end of the game. But I did have a lot of assists, which I think is good, but I also could be coping with how bad I am at the game. And then the game after that, we had to surrender because the enemy team had 2 ADCs in the bottom lane, which every time the jungle tried to gank them, he'd get one shot, which fed them enough to do really good and get really good items, and then they did the AD carry thing. That insta-kills me? And then for the final game of the day, since I didn't really have any luck on Jinx, I decided to go Caitlyn again, and just like the first game, I went on a tear. I was getting kill after kill after kill, and I even managed to get a new record for my highest kill game with minimal deaths, which was 11, and I finally made it a little bit into Iron 3 by 4 points, so the dream of hitting Iron 2 was possible. So I got off for the night and decided to pick it back up on day 5. On day 5, I didn't have a lot of time to play, so I could only get in 2 matches, and I was super disappointed because in my first game, I got rocked by the enemy team, which wasn't anything new, but in my second game, I didn't even do that bad and still ended up losing because my top lane got owned by a really strong Alawi. So after those matches got finished, I had to leave to go to a family gathering and decided that if I wanted to make it to Iron 2, I would have to play out of my mind on day 6. On day 6, I decided to play extra long to try and get myself back into Iron 3 and get far enough through it so that on day 7, I could reach my goal of Iron 2. And for my first match, I got totally rolled. There wasn't even a struggle, I just got backhanded by the enemy team. And that basically was all that. And for the second game, we lost again after Kindred got 6 Void Grubs and split push top lane since our team wasn't paying very good attention, which was also on me as well. In my third game, I was able to get queued with an incredibly good support, and I was able to capitalize off a lot of his abilities after he hit them. We ended up clean sweeping the enemy bottom lane, and after that, we were able to snowball the entire game in our favor and eventually won the game. I played a couple more games after that one, and they went about the same as usual, although they were very slow and the fights weren't all that interesting because I was either always there at the last second, or I just used an ability and got the kill since they were really low. But after my last match of the day, I was only 4 wins off Iron 2, so I decided to save the last games I needed for day 7. On day 7, I figured since I only needed to win 4 games to get to Iron 2, there would be no better character to play than Jhin, since he's a man of 4, and also he was one of the characters that I was practicing at the beginning of the week, so I could have a handful of new characters to play once I finished the 7 days. And for the first game, nothing too notable happened. We didn't play bad, but I think I was just running the wrong build, so I wasn't going too insane, but I definitely wasn't lacking in any way, shape, or form. But after that match, the next match I played was the game I had been looking for all week. After we loaded into the match, I felt something inside of me, like a newfound confidence after winning my first game on Jhin, and I knew what I needed to do in order to do the AD carry thing as best as I could, and that's exactly what I did. After heading to the bottom lane, I got jumped by 2 enemies who were hiding in a bush, and after I backed off for a bit, I got down to my last bullet, and the Rel made a huge mistake. She brought a sword to a gunfight.
Get out of here, dude.
And after I got the first kill of the game, I played out of my mind. The entire game was basically a montage for me. I was getting so many eliminations, I couldn't believe that 7 days ago, I was barely getting any. I was playing so differently, I was even flabbergasted at how I was playing. I even managed to get my first ever quadra kill.
That's too easy, bro. Holy Jesus! I just got a quad, dude. 4!
And the game was looking super winnable, right? Like, there was no way we could possibly... Yeah, we ended up, like, hard throwing the game. And after that, I also ended up losing 4 matches in a row. Which, I mean, is quite poetic. I needed 4 wins and got 4 losses instead, leaving me at 4 LP and Iron 4. But that was my 7 days learning how to play ADC. It was super fun and I really enjoyed the challenge, even though I failed at reaching my goal. But I did feel like I improved my skill throughout my entire journey, even though it wasn't by much, it still was by a little. So if you guys like this type of content and want to see more, please make sure to go down, like, subscribe, and leave a comment on what role you think I should try next. And finally, I would just like to say thank you all for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace!